Gosh, okay, I had the craziest download today. Again, I'm like, man, these things are coming at me, and so I'm just gonna keep sharing them. So this one today is about creating boundaries for yourself. Creating boundaries for yourself. Now, before we even go further, how many of you guys have ever felt uncomfortable setting a boundary with someone else? Wow. I used to be so uncomfortable setting boundaries that I would literally give away every part of me. All of my energy, all of my bandwidth would be extended because I was uncomfortable with creating boundaries for myself. Can anyone relate to that? Okay, so for those of you who don't know me, my name is Jen. I like to be known as Jen, the Generator, and I am a mind ascension coach, which I just came up with. I created that term for myself. I was kind of over the high performance thing. It's really not what I do. I'm not about performing for anyone. I'm about really ascending into the highest version of yourself. So I want to talk about boundaries because this is something that's been coming up with a lot of my clients, and I thought this would really connect with you today. I'm going to share with you the way you can determine if you're setting healthy boundaries and how to do that, and the way you can determine if you're setting unhealthy boundaries that are going to offend someone or maybe have them take it personally. So who wants to learn about that? Yeah? Okay. So I'm going to share my take on this, and I hope it supports you. And I hope that this really brings you some peace when creating boundaries. So the first thing is, a lot of times we are uncomfortable with setting boundaries, or I was, because I didn't want to be disliked. I didn't want people to not like me or approve of me. I thought my worth was tied into what people thought of me, right? And I don't think that way anymore. However, it took me a long way to get there because being kicked out of the tribe or not being accepted or being judged is really hard on your ego. And so if you've ever felt like you don't want to set boundaries because you don't want to offend, you don't want to be impolite, you don't want to cause a ruckus or cause a fuss, then this video is for you, okay? So this is what I want to share with you. In order to keep our power, in order to keep our own power, we have to establish healthy boundaries. And the healthy boundaries are about us. They're really not about the other people. We get that mistaken. We think that boundaries are about creating boundaries for other people. They're really about creating boundaries for ourselves so we can keep our own power. And one of the ways that you can kind of figure this out and how you're determining if you're creating healthy or unhealthy boundaries, or boundaries that will be respected, or boundaries that will make someone maybe offended, is if you're using the word you or I. So if you're using the word you, if you're setting a boundary and it's using the word you, then that boundary is about control. Trying to control someone else's behavior, which never will end well and will make them be defensive. It will create disharmony in that relationship. Instead, if you create a boundary for yourself that uses the word I or me and control your own behavior without involving the other person, that's a healthy boundary that will enable you to keep your power and will also enable you to release any disharmony in the other relationship. So here's an example. There's a particular person in my life that I love very much, but they have very different political views than I do, right? And very different. And I know that when I'm in this person's presence and they begin speaking about these political views that I disagree with and that actually make me a little bit upset, I can do one of two things. I can try to control them. And if I say, I don't want you to talk about this with me right now, I just created disharmony because I tried to control their behavior. I told them what I don't want them to do versus what I'm going to do. So instead, reframing what I've learned is, I really think I need to get outside for a walk right now, or I'm going to go make dinner, right? I'm removing myself from that situation. I'm not even discussing the fact of what they need to do. It's all about me. So then in that moment, I'm disengaged. I removed myself from the behavior that I didn't want to be a part of, right? I took ownership of how my emotions are going to be spent, how I keep my power. I removed myself from that situation and I went somewhere else. Guess what? The relationship is intact, right? The relationship did not get bent out of shape. It's fine. I'm just making dinner or I'm going for a walk. It has nothing to do with trying to change or control the other person's behavior. That's a boundary that I can control, and that's a boundary that allows me to keep my power. and not get overwhelmed, not get wound up, not lose my shit, to be honest, not get involved in this dissertation that could end in an argument, very likely, especially in heated conversations, right, in heated topics. And I got to keep my power and have a happy evening with someone that I love, right? So I invite you to look at how you're setting boundaries and how you are dictating, if you are, to other people, and how that might make them feel, and try to reframe that boundary for yourself and what you can control. And that will alleviate the need to please people because you're not creating any disharmony, right? That will eliminate them not liking you, right? That will eliminate all those fears that you might have regarding the other person's perception of you. So what can you do? How can you reframe maybe a boundary that you're up against right now in your life? Maybe there's something that is really bothering you. Maybe there's something that's really pulling on you, and you need to create a boundary to protect your energy, your mental health, or just your own personal power so that you don't lose your shit. So just take some inventory. I'd love to hear about it. I'd love to hear about how you create those boundaries for yourself versus the control of trying to create them for someone else. All right, you guys, thanks for listening. If you guys want more of this stuff, I put everything on my YouTube channel. So if you ever want to hear more of my lives or my downloads, you can go over to YouTube and hear about them there.